Welcome back. You're watching Luck on Sunday. It's a great pleasure to have Sky Australia Thoroughbred Central viewers with us today and live for the remainder of this series as well every Sunday. So we really welcome your support, and hopefully we'll be concentrating much more on some of the racing from around the globe and from Australia as the season progresses. And the man who has just joined us in the studio used to train Australia's best racehorse. I don't think you'll mind George Boughey being known as the man who used to train Via Sistina, will you? It's not such a bad tag to have.
No, look, she was a star for us. It's actually quite satisfying to see them go on because they don't always do what you thought they were going to do, and I did think she'd have been a real force here last year, so credit to Chris Waller and his team. And
actually, she was a bit of a triumph for you anyway, inheriting her from other trainers and then going on and getting her up to Group 1 level. Yeah, I mean, we've only had 2 Group 1 winners, and she was one of them, so possibly could have won another 1 or 2, sadly, but yeah, she was a star. She's got a big autumn ahead of her, I'd say. Yeah, I'm sure she has. Now, the reason you're here today is because you are on the cusp of what could be a really significant moment. Well, 1 in your life and 2 in your career. Just tell us about how the next couple of months are going to pan out for you. I think we've been looking for a big move for a while. I actually probably spoke to you about it last year when we were in Hong Kong, and yeah, we needed somewhere to grow and develop into, and you know, we're starting to get the support that I sort of always wanted, and look, my team have been working very hard at the moment. I mean, tireless hours, sort of getting this move together, and we're nearly ready to go. Okay, so where have you gone from and to, and how big's the expansion? It's actually not that much more of an expansion. I think it's more the facilities that we're now able to sort of provide for the horses as much as anything. But I always slightly felt with owners coming to the yard, you know, we couldn't really give them that experience that I wanted them to have. So yeah, it's an old Godolphin yard just down the road. It's been dormant for 2 or 3 years, and it's a pretty cool facility. I actually was walking around it the other day, and I was saying to you just off air there, it's a bit of a hidden gem. You know, I drove past it every day for 5-10 years nearly, and never really thought of it as a possibility. But you know, with Kia and Ammo Racing moving into Sir Michael Stouts and that sort of thing, it presented as a really good opportunity for us. So, and I think the buzz of my staff at the moment, they're just desperate to get in. You know, this was a week 10 days ago. It looks very different again now, and no, it's hugely exciting. And have you had to do an awful lot of investment in the infrastructure before you've moved in? We didn't really need to do anything, but to bring the 2 yards together, I wanted to put that trotting ring in that you can see here, and you know, it was a pre-training yard. It hasn't been licensed for 20 years or so, I think, since Godolphin have had it, and yeah, it's like sort of moving to the Premiership from Championship. And so you had a bash at getting Freemason Lodge, did you? It was spoken about. I spoke to Sir Michael, and look, it's a much more comfortable position for me in a climate of racing that is quite difficult. You know, the postcode is the place that probably makes it affordable. Freemason is on the Bury Road, which is prime property. Yeah, exactly. And look, I think we've got the facility that we need to take us to the next level. And in terms of numerically, you say you don't feel you're going to grow the string that much. Were you pretty much at capacity? Yeah, look, we've operated at sort of above capacity for a while, and I think the manpower it's taken, whether it be Henry Morshead, my assistant, my office, my travelling staff, moving horses around, has made life difficult. You know, we had a bit of a difficult spring last year, and probably because the biosecurity was under a little bit of pressure with horses moving so much, and now we're just able to house the horses that we want on site, and yeah, it just looks like it should be able to allow us to grow and try and improve the quality of horse as much as anything. And obviously, you know, every time you come in here, you've reached new milestones. You've either trained another Group 1 winner, you've trained a Classic winner now. Things are happening fast. I mean, since we last spoke here in this studio, what do you think is the key thing that you've learnt about the job? I think the delegation. I listened to a little bit of what Dan was saying on the drive down here this morning, and it's
my job is so different now. I mean, I basically feel like I don't do the same job as when I started. I was very hands-on at the start, and you kind of had to be. We had 3 horses, A.D. Rogers, my head lad, and he was riding them, I was mucking them out, and we got going from the floor, really.
Do you miss that?
I do miss the day-to-day. I do a very similar job training the horses, but I wouldn't be as in contact as much with them. It's hard to keep on the ball with horses here, there and everywhere. And I think we had horses in 6 or 7 different locations through the summer, and it was hard work spending time heading around the pre-trainers and making sure everything was. But yeah, I do miss it slightly, but it's, the different pressures are what I've wanted, and I'm glad to have them.
I mean, you mentioned, we were speaking when you took Believing to Hong Kong last year in April, and I know that, there's always a possibility that if you've got an upwardly mobile young trainer who doesn't appear to have too many ties at the time, that could be somewhere that you might have looked at. Was that an option, going to Hong Kong?
Look, I've always wanted to try and train horses at the highest level in England. Yes, essentially, I was thinking about where I was going to be for the long term, and I have always wanted to train in England. Everyone seems to stay where they're born almost. I was just chatting outside there about, great friend Dave Yates, who's I don't really see anymore. We lived together at the time when he left. He went for 3 months, I think, and he's never come back.
Because he went to Oz and then
in Hong Kong. And look, international racing is what I love. For me, we're obviously nowhere near where the likes of Joseph O'Brien and co are, but speaking to him, it's all about trying to find the opportunity around the world. And we've got a team about to go to France in 4 weeks' time to try and target those Lister races.
Those early 2-year-old races?
Well, mainly the early, older fillies races. Chic Colombine and a couple of Highclere fillies are going to go out there, and it's paved a good way for us. So, yeah, I love travelling horses, but we're pretty set here now.
And because now you've got your base, you own your base, and that's very important. But I know that your mind is a restless mind, isn't it? It's not one that rests easily.
Yeah, I think. Well, look, I don't think the person that I am will ever be settled in exactly where I am. I think we're always looking to try and expand, and once we get the yard right in the next few weeks, I'll then be looking what we can do to change it and what we can do to upgrade it. And I think that's the same with our horses. Got to keep looking outside the box.
I mean, I would pose the same question to you as I posed to Dan earlier. Neither of you is short of ambition, neither of you is short of business ability, commercial ability, and neither of you is frightened of expansion of your stable. But it obviously goes through your head, right, can I embrace a stable of this size and still give the horses the care that they require and the attention they require to maximise their potential? Is that a question that you pose yourself? I think so.
I think the horses, it's actually quite easy to keep the attention to detail. It's the communication with people, and I was looking at Dan's runners yesterday. I don't know how many runners he had, 15, 16, 18 runners. You've then got that amount of people to know that your horse is fine or not fine the next day, and before the race and after the race. And that's the thing where expansion can be tricky. But I'm lucky I train for some very supportive people, and they sort of know how we work, so it seems to be working anyway.
And what are the key attributes you look for when you're recruiting senior staff? Because obviously when you're in your position, you're going to need a lot of people at a pretty high level to then communicate those messages further through the workforce. What are you looking for? What are the key skills and attributes you look for? What do you like in a person?
I think I've already mentioned him, A.D. Rogers, who's my head man. He has worked for some of the best trainers. He was at Stouts, Cecil's, Chris Wall's, at Hugo's with me before, and he kind of runs the show, and he does a lot of the selecting of senior staff, and they're possibly more of his age group, and people who've worked for the best people, and I empower them with a lot of trust. We've been lucky to grow at the speed we have, but that's not without them. It just wouldn't have worked. I can't feel every horse's leg. I can't do the things that they do. I can do them, but I can't to grow. And yeah, it's just trying to find those top people, and that wage bill keeps going up.
He was talking about imposter syndrome. Is that something that afflicts you? Do you look at yourself in a paddock before a classic and think, oh my God, what am I doing here? Or do you think, yeah, I'm George Boughey, this is where I belong?
Very much the former, no. I still do pinch myself. It's kind of like, I did a report for Believing yesterday. You know, she was the fastest filly in Europe last year, and yeah, I still pinch myself. I think I always will, you know, to have trained 100 winners for the third year on the spin. I do. It's probably about the only time recently in the yard move where I've kind of been in England for quite a while and sort of trying to reflect on it and see what we actually have done, which is, it's really satisfying.
And has that been good? Have you found that helpful, just to have that little period of stability?
I think so, yeah. I have felt a little bit like we're always on the move until we're about to move into our base, because we had temporary stables going up left, right and centre and trying to house horses wherever we could. And I do feel like we are a bit more settled now.
Can we talk a little bit about Believing? Because she went to the Scepter sessions, she made a lot of money, Coolmore bought her, they sent her back to you. How much unfinished business is there, do you think, with her?
Look, it's a big decision that we're going to have to make pretty soon. I was pretty gutted, I must say, not to have won a Group 1 last year. For Highclere, who've been such big supporters, and those sprints, to be as consistent as she was for such a long period of time, you know, she never bombed out, apart from when she didn't start in America. And the draws were a bit unfortunate, but that's racing. You know, she was drawn miles away from Bradshaw most of the year, so they never really got a head-to-head. And the trust that MV and his team has sort of put in me, and you know, to say, what are we doing? We'll obviously have a chat pretty soon, but she's just started picking up her work, and it's sort of quite a generic thing that people say, but she does look to have come back really well. So hopefully she can go on and nick a big one.
OK, so clearly Royal Ascot's going to be a priority. Would you get a run or two into her before then or not?
I hope so. Dubai is the big aim for her.
Of course, yeah, that's right.
I think the thing with Dubai enables, if it doesn't work, or if something goes wrong, or if she is not the filly of old, they can cover her. It is just about, you know, it's pretty late, but yeah, Dubai gives us that option to go either way. So she's off to Chelmsford pretty soon for a piece of work, and we'll be rocking and rolling. OK, and then to the Alquoise on Dubai World Cup night, which is a little later this year as well, so it's giving you a bit more time. Yeah, and she looked super in Hong Kong last year, and it's a similar time, and I'd kind of almost hoped that we would have gone to Dubai last year, but she wasn't in the form that she's in now this time, so we kind of had to take stock a little bit. But yeah, Royal Ascot will be the midsummer target if she's still in training.
And obviously, when you've had a classic winner, as you did with Cachet, and surprised a few people, you're setting the bar very high for yourself. Do you feel within your stable now, do you feel within the horses who've just turned 3, you've got horses who are going to be in the classics?
This is the year that we've had the most sort of impressive maiden winners going into the 3-year-old career. You know, Cachet was a bit of an anomaly. You know, it was her and Oscudo at the time. But, you know, we hope that they'd go and scale the heights that they did, but the percentages are way against you. Whereas this year we have got some, you know, some proper 2-year-olds rising 3, and hopefully they can go on and be the stars of the show, for the next couple of years. Who's getting you excited? When you get out of bed in the morning, you're thinking, I can't wait to see X or Y or Z. There's 3 maiden winners, I'd say. Hopewell Rock, a horse that we bought for Sheikh Mohammed Obeid, who's 2 from 2. Remind me the name? Hopewell Rock. Hopewell Rock. Yeah, okay, yeah. New Bay horse, rated in the 90s, only won a couple of novices, but he's the one horse who'd be entered in classics probably. Stay in classics, I'd imagine, but am I saying we've got a Derby horse? Probably not, but, you know, he's a horse that... Is he in the Derby as things stand? He's not. He's more of an Irish Derby sort of type of horse, I think, and if I have my way, he might be one programmed a little bit later into the year, but the Royal Ascot handicaps could be more his go initially. I like the way you said, if I have my way. Just remind me who owns him again? But not in that sense, but, you know, the horse is having to start to do things now. Like when Cachet was getting ready for the Guineas, you know, he's not a Guineas horse. He won't be ready in time. It's just not possible. But yeah, he'll be doing his first piece of work on Tuesday, and see what Billy says. OK, we'll come to Billy in a moment. Hopewell Bay is 1. Who were the other 2 that you wanted to give him on North to? Star, See the Stars filly, who won pretty impressively, owned by the Kavanaghs. Yeah, she's a filly who we're probably going to have to try and run in a stakes race early in the year. she could be off to France at some point. But
to see if you've got a...
To see if we've got a horse who can go... It's kind of like Mystery Angel when she was second in the Oaks. She went to France in March. And that, for me, she probably should have won. She was second in a listed race, but it brought her into that bracket that you could go for them. Some of them out the back of the screen, and we know where we're going. But, yeah, and a horse called Brooklyn, Night of Thunder colt, who runs in Ed Babington Silks, so that would be nice for him to try and find another good one. He was probably the most impressive on debut last year, but he's kind of like Hopewell Rock. He's so raw that time will probably allow him to be the better horse, but it will be later in the year, I'd say. And
you mentioned Ed Babington, of course. You had missed the cut for him, who you did so well with. That was a great story. Ended up in America, did very well for John Sadler. You talk about your global ambitions, your international ambitions to sort of conquer lots of different places with lots of different horses. Who do you look at and admire in that respect?
I think Joseph O'Brien has to be the one. You know, whether it's jumpers or flat horses, everywhere, he seems to have a, you know, I think there were 4 or 5 countries he had a runner in last summer or whatever it was. You know, they're everywhere, and that's what we want to do, but it's only with the imagination of the owners that you can do that. You know, it's sending a horse to Hong Kong, like Believing last year. Most people thought we were mad, and in hindsight, we might have been, because it was so hard and it rained for 9 days, as we well knew when we were out there. But to have that belief, we wouldn't have been able to pull those sort of stunts off ever if it wasn't for the owners kind of letting me have free rein on them.
And you'll know so much more about that sort of challenge next time you want to do it.
Absolutely. I think, you know, it's very hard to work in Hong Kong to you know, in Australia. I worked in Australia, worked in America, and you kind of know the system to an extent. But I will feel a lot better prepared going the next time.
Yeah.
Although we thought we were prepared, it was, yeah, it was a difficult one. Quite hard to take.
You had a couple of quite humbling international experiences last year between that and the Breeders' Cup, didn't you?
Yeah, that was difficult end of the year, but luckily Horse and Rider were fine, so.
Yeah, of course it was Ryan Moore on Believing, wasn't it, before the sprint in the Breeders' Cup. The man who'll be doing most of your riding this year will be Billy Loughnane, who is a star. Do you think he'll be champion jockey this year?
Like he's got the right man to take him that way, and
Tony Hind.
Yeah, Tony's obviously the sort of supremo agent and has been for quite some time. I think he's 9 champion jockeys in, and I just think Billy has so many of the attributes, sort of becoming a bit of a broken record, really. Everyone's saying how great he is, and
does he wear the pressure well? Does he wear that burden of expectation well for someone who's so young?
I think almost his youth helps him, because, you know, when I was 18, he could hardly tie his shoelaces up. This guy's riding in Group 1s around the world, and you know, he is so sort of wise beyond his years. I remember when his dad tapped me on the shoulder at the horse and training sale a couple of years ago and said, you know, my boy's starting riding, and I thought, crikey, here we go. Here's another one. You know, you get someone in, and I said, okay, cool, we'll see him in the morning. And I think Mark was a bit like, he's got school in the morning, and Billy was there the next morning and came bounding into the office age 16, and I was like, oh, I think we need to make sure he keeps coming in, and he's come in twice a week. You know, he's in 4 days a week at the moment. He just loves it, and I think it took him 32 rides to have a winner. He nearly stopped coming in because it just wasn't working for some reason, but that's since changed.
How much of a kick has that given you, just being a part of that process?
Look, I almost get as much of a kick out of my staff, and not that Billy's a member of staff, but, you know, seeing people develop. You know, I've got lads who couldn't hold down a job and who are thriving, and Billy's come to us, and obviously he's had a great grounding at his parents and that sort of thing, but he's able to get on better horses, even better horses for other trainers, not just me. But seeing that is, yeah, it's hugely satisfying. I love it. We've got 3 apprentices in the yard at the moment, all trying to be Billy.
See, what I always observe with you, although it may be an observation that isn't right on the money, is that I sort of feel that you can put racing down sometimes. Most trainers will say they're so intense and they're up all night and they're this, that and the other. You laugh as though I'm wrong. I don't know.
Well, I'm better now. I used to, I do try and have a few more hobbies than I used to. I used to be pretty bad. It was eat, sleep and everything was racing. But I don't think there's a longevity in, certainly in my life, to do that every single minute of the day. So, yeah, trying to do things that take my mind off it. Other sports, I think, essentially is...
Playing other sports?
I go to the gym, but mainly watching other sports. Big Southampton fan, which is not doing me much good this year.
And you were trying to get to the Super Bowl today, weren't you?
We went last year. It was,
I did give you the out. I said, just come next week. And you're like, no, too much on.
No, there's quite a bit on at the moment. So, no, a bit of a Chiefs fan. So hopefully we can get the job done tonight.
Tell me about the experience last year of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was... I think, look, to go to the first Super Bowl and it be in Vegas was pretty cool. With some great people and, yeah, unforgettable.
And as an occasion as well, as a show, as a piece of theatre, as much as a sporting game.
I think more than the sporting. Obviously, it was an amazing game, but just how they do sport, we've got a lot to learn here. You know, our FA Cup final is not the same as the Super Bowl. It's yeah, it's pretty cool how they just do everything bigger and better, don't they? Whatever level it is. Oh,
by the way, I'm told it's just shy of 2 minutes this year, the national anthem, for those of you who may or may not be interested. But there's the markets have all closed, so I don't think there's no scope for any insider trading there. What else is preoccupying George Boughey at the moment?
Lots of things.
Well, I think the fact that you're about to be a dad might be...
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Might be one of them.
Taking on a bit of a new challenge, but no, it's very exciting.
And that's only in, what, 6-8 weeks' time?
7th of April, so I might have to work out whether I'm going to World Cup or I'm going to be in hospital. So, no, very exciting. Look, it's the next chapter and looking forward to it.
And is there a sense that, actually, you're better if it's all coming at you at once?
I think so. I've always sort of taken everything on at the same time. It's kind of what we've always done, and yeah, look, it's sort of way of life, isn't it? You know, we'll just, I don't really know what we're doing, but we'll work it out. So no, it's exciting.
Do you get stressed?
Yeah, I think you have to be stressed. You have to. It's sort of
you wear it very lightly.
But stress is good. It's, you know, if I wasn't stressed, we wouldn't have good horses. We wouldn't be dealing with high-powered people. I'd like more stress. I don't think, you know, it's just managing how... I have good people around me which take a lot of the stress off me. But, yeah, we'll keep looking for more of it. OK, and where does this temperament come from? I think if you ask some of my friends, I probably wouldn't have had as good a temperament before I started training.
So what were you like then?
Well, I was probably a little bit more erratic. But I realised that wasn't sustainable. You know, you have to have a good mind. It's kind of like horses. If you don't have, you know, if Believing didn't have the temperament she has, she wouldn't be a good racehorse. So, yeah, I do work on it. It's something that you have to try and teach yourself not to get. I don't get too high. I don't get too low. I used to be terrified going to Bath or Wolverhampton or whatever when the horse was going to get beat, but you can't really change it. So now it's part of life, isn't it? And can you be on all the time? You know what I'm saying? And I was talking about it to Dan a little bit earlier. When you're there and you're in the spotlight to a certain extent and you've got to entertain and you've got to answer questions and you've got to do all the nuts and bolts of actually what the training is, you're saddling up and legging up or whatever. You find it easy to be on all the time? Well, I actually, the last year or two, I've kind of, during the big meetings, sort of Ascots and that sort of thing, my travelling staff will saddle the horse. I'll be there to saddle, but I won't be waiting around the weighing room and that sort of thing because I've got owners to be with. And I kind of felt my first couple of Ascots, I was so flustered, you're charging around the place, and it's not a very good look, I don't think. I'd rather just be more composed and able to deal with the people that effectively at the end of the day you need to talk to and explain why the horse has finished 12th of 12 in the Golden Gates or whatever it is. It's a lot easier with, as I've always said, as I said just earlier, with good people around you. It makes my life so much easier. It's such an exciting season in prospect. What makes it a good season? What makes 2025 a good 2025 for George Boughey? The last 2 years we'd had Group 1 winners and I was a little bit annoyed that Believing didn't win one last year. I'd love to have another winner at the top level. 100 winners has been a big goal for us, mainly because it's giving us the numbers to be able to find that one good horse. And it's, like everyone says, oh, you only need one good horse. you need more than one good horse, otherwise the wheels do fall off. And we've been just below the £2 million barrier for the last couple of years, and I'd love to try and hit that as well.
George, for the moment, thank you very much. George Boughey, he's staying with us, and when you rejoin us after the break, we will be talking to jumps jockey Lily Pinchin, who is just about to release an intriguing documentary which is chronicling her life living with ADHD. Do stay with us.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.